So it's not every day you get some really fun experiences in brawling battleships, but I had a couple in the Pommern, and I thought, what a great way to end off the week with a very fun brawling battleship video. And if you're wondering about the build, it is pretty similar to the ones I've been running recently, where I take concealment, fire prevention, the two secondary skills, and on Pommern I'm taking IFHE to try and get those 105s up to 32 mil pen, and then I'm trying to time my push, and that's what concealment allows me to do. We're missing out on a heal, but if you're playing a brawling battleship, you're probably not getting to 5 heals anyway. Either the game ends or you die. That is just kind of how they go. And I'm not going to show everything from these games because, well, some of the parts are just a little bit boring, where we have extended periods of time where we're just either running away or we're spending time trying to get up to where the enemy actually is because we've cleared out our flank already. Now, something you should really consider is just turning flat broadside to Torpedoes when they're this low and this close to you. They really want to get their torpedoes off, and at the health that I'm at, I really don't have to worry too much about dying to his main guns. He did maybe 10k damage with his main guns, but this guarantees we're dodging the torpedoes. Not always the best strategy to go with, but I really don't want to eat a torpedo. And I did have a hydro, fair enough, but I didn't really want to use it, knowing that it would take me a long time to get back into the fight. If you look at the timer, we've actually spent around 7 minutes just sailing towards the enemy. We've killed a submarine, actually, along the way. The anti-submarine warfare on the Pommern is actually pretty decent, surprisingly. They didn't do it dirty like the Ohio, where it only gets that 6-kilometer range on the anti-submarine warfare. This is at least decent and quite usable. But we're getting into the thick of things now. We've pushed towards the enemy base, where we're going to try and use this island to limit who can shoot at us. We've popped the Lucian's buff, which is always a good time. Getting those secondaries firing even faster. It is pretty much the full secondary build. I'm not even building for main guns on my upgrades. Those are in the final slot, the 3 million upgrade. I am actually running secondaries. And of course, to get 12-kilometer range, I'm also running this secondary upgrade in the third slot as well. These secondaries aren't nearly as good as the upcoming German battle cruiser line, but they're still pretty decent and always a fun addition to have when you're brawling it out. So we've now acquired 4 kills. And yes, not a lot of damage, but again, low health targets do need to be finished off, and you're never going to get a lot of damage out of them. Of course, in this game there is an aircraft carrier, so we're expecting some focus from him, but positioning ourselves like we have, we're actually forcing the enemy team to push into us. That's really what the goal is all the time in a secondary battleship. You're always at a massive disadvantage in this game when you're the one pushing, so pushing in a secondary battleship where, I mean, let's be honest, these German ones especially have a huge superstructure, it's not going to work out too amazing. So if you can get in a spot where people have to push to you, it's so much better. It is actually crazy how much better the German battleships really get when people are forced to push into you. And that's what our positioning is. We're trying to get these guys to push back to their spawn. We're taking some pressure and putting it on their home cap. Standard battle games often can end up like this in the late game. Unfortunately, it does take a long time to get there, but we can have some fun in standard battles, surprisingly. Now here we're definitely going to be using islands to try and dodge the CV strikes, so we know we're going to be able to deal with a strike coming in from the angle he was with this little rock here. We're also not pushing out too far because we know there's going to be torpedoes along the way. But you notice how there's an Amagi in the open water here, and he's not maneuvering, he's not really doing much, and this Kaga could go strike him, and yet he doesn't. His goal is to strike me, and I guess there is an element of target priority here, but given his approach angle, it seems like it would have been a better idea to just go after the Amagi, because he's decided to strike, or try to strike, with these torpedo bombers right through the island. Maybe he's trying to get CVs buffed. I can understand that given that play. But regardless, we now have to deal with the Tone and a Benson. And we don't have a Hydro left. So this is going to be a little bit sketchy here. We're going to have to just guess when these guys are going to have their torpedoes available. That's really what it comes down to. As soon as your Hydro is up, you're feeling pretty good when you're dealing with destroyers and everything. But as soon as it goes down, it's a little bit rough. And of course, here is no exception. I'm trying to bait some torpedoes right here. That's why I turned flat broadside. I was thinking I could maybe bait some torpedoes out from the DD and I could just slow down and turn in. That tends to be a decent option, a decent trick. And in fact, here is the Benson now with his smoke screen he was trying to get for the tone. But we killed him just before he went dark, and a double strike to finish off this game. Unfortunately, nothing else really happens after this. Get a little damage in the carrier, but actually we weren't able to kill him before the time ticked out, which is super duper unfortunate. Now on to the second game. This is one where we get some big damage out of this one. And surprisingly, my Pommern was working very well in this one. I don't think this is a good representation of this ship at all. I was getting citadels later on, you'll see, at pretty long ranges on some of these cruisers. So not going into matches expecting that, but always nice to see. But because of the way the enemy has deployed in this one, we're actually able to just straight charge into the sea cap here. Pop the Hydro, we know there's a DD on our flank, it's only a tier 7, so the torpedoes aren't too scary, still want to avoid them if we can. And we really only have 2 cruisers to deal with here. The battleships are kind of tucked in behind some islands, and it allows us to get into this extremely strong position. If you were watching Kings of the Sea these last couple weekends, or were watching me kind of re-stream it and listening to some of the commentary, you'll know that on this map, this gap between B and C is incredibly powerful. It is one of the most powerful positions in the entire game. Assuming you can stay safe from someone pushing around behind you in C, it is unbelievably easy to win games from this channel. And that's because there's so much cover and it allows you to stay so close to this B cap without really having to stay in a vulnerable position. You can always back up and use islands intelligently, getting some really, really, really good cover that close to the cap. It's really hard to deal with. But of course, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed a win as soon as you get in there. You do have to be careful of the DD YOLO or just an entire enemy team pushing behind you, right? You can get crossfired very easily. Bismarck goes broadside. Of course, we're going to get some damage, but nearly 30,000 out of a Pommern? What? Shocking. Actually shocking amounts of damage there. Like I said, don't expect your guns to work like this in every match with this thing. This is maybe a 1 in 10, 1 in 20 type game with this thing. And there is our first kill. We nearly activated Lucians, actually, on that Bismarck alone. So we're looking pretty good on this game. We almost have our buff activated, and it's not even 5 minutes into the game. And in fact, if we want to do the meme Slava challenge, we're getting close to doing that. We have 15 seconds longer, but we got to get another 20k or so, which I don't think is going to happen. But for a Pommern to get close to the super unbalanced Slava challenge, I think that's kind of funny to see. And this Moss is actually spotted by, I actually don't know what. I think he must have shot or something. But regardless, it's going to give us the opportunity to finish up our Lucian's buff, getting our secondaries firing even faster, and of course taking them out with our main guns. Not guaranteed, but pretty much at these low HPs, right? We only need to hit 2 shells out of 12. Pommern is a great ship. If you're thinking about picking this thing up, it is a ton of fun. But you need to know that you do struggle against aircraft carriers, and you struggle in games where you're not able to push in. Really, against tier 10, it's not as good as the Freddy. I personally believe that the Freddy is the better of the two, the Tech Tree tier 9. But the Pommern is probably a little bit more fun, I would say. I generally find 12-gun battleships more fun, even though they're usually not as good as the 8-gun or 9-gun counterparts, where they tend to get more overmatched when you have less shells in the air. And they actually have better dispersion, so number of hits on target is similar. But seeing all of the volume of fire going into someone is a really good, really just fun thing to see, even if you don't always get the most damage out of it. But again, another 10k onto the Ignize now is very nice to see. Now, there is an enemy Pommern on this enemy team, but he's not pushing into us. I was expecting him to come in here and brawl, honestly, especially given that my friend in the Georgia has already charged past torpedoes. You know, 2 battleships pushing in, that's like the dream for a Pommern or a Torpedoes or anything with torpedoes, really, that's tanky. You want to get in between them, launch your torpedoes off both sides, and Sure, you'll probably go down, but you're going to do some massive damage and have a ton of fun along the way. That, of course, is one of the unique traits of the Pommern, is that you're getting torpedoes where the Freddy does not. And that's where I say this ship is, again, a little bit more fun, but not quite as good, because you're getting into closer range brawly situations at high tier. That's what you're relying on, and that doesn't happen all the time. So as long as you understand that, I think Pommern is a great pickup, even now for Cole, but don't expect it to be this overpowered, amazing ship that's going to carry every single game. But if you're looking for a fun brawler battleship, or you're trying to train up some commanders, or you're looking for a decent premium that you can throw the commander on for your Schlieffen in the upcoming, I think, second patch from now? It's not this upcoming patch they release. I think it's the next patch they release for everyone to get for free. But having the 105s means the IFHE build is going to be great on both the Pommern and this upcoming battlecruiser line. So that is another reason to maybe pick up this ship if you don't have it already. But as far as its competitiveness goes, it's really not. It's a very easy ship to kill. The turtleback is not as good as any of the other ships in the entire German line. So far, the Freddy and the Pommern suffer from a very shallow turtleback, where if you even turn slightly, you're probably going to get citadeled. And that's not so good when that turtleback also gives you the disadvantage of always taking full pens, like we saw earlier with that Bismarck. But again, it's a pretty good ship, and I enjoy playing it every once in a while. Just not all the time. It is certainly not my main ship. And that usually comes down to its long-range accuracy. I find that a lot of the games these days, you're just going to be playing at range. But in this match, for some reason, I was actually getting some insane luck with these main guns. You'll notice I've been sequential firing. I don't know if that helps, but it maybe adds a few more dice rolls to the pool, where instead of sending out all your shells at once and it calculates everything all at once as far as dispersion, maybe sending out more turrets one at a time gives you more opportunities to calculate dispersion and gives you better, I don't know, chances of normal distribution, I guess. I don't think that's how it works, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but it's something that sometimes helps. And in this game, it actually did all right. Maybe it helps just because it varies up the aiming position, and that way we're not getting screwed over by the auto-aim system. Freddy finally pushes in, getting into a brawl with a battleship again. It's been like 5 minutes since we really were brawling anything, but again, he's probably going to go down to the torpedoes that are well on their way to killing him, right? That is one of the issues when you push in. It's very easy to get torped. It's very easy to get, well, outmaneuvered and forced to go broadside to someone. And now we've just got the cleanup left. 10 points left on the enemy team. Really not that much else to say, other than that this final salvo is probably the best salvo I've ever seen out of a German battleship. I am not sure how this happened, but again, don't expect this out of your Pommern. It's a fun ship. It's a very fun ship. The secondaries, the torpedoes, it's hilarious. Having hydro is very nice, but you can't be expecting to hit, well, I think you saw that briefly come out of the gun, and do 25k damage. Front guns only Pommern into a broadside cruiser. Pretty crazy, but that's going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you have a great weekend and maybe try out some brawling. It's not going to work all the time, but it can be a good time if you're willing to suffer through those few matches where you can't really push in and you just kind of die. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.